Hey, welcome in. Get comfortable. Let the day fade out, and we'll ease into a quiet story about Odin's search for wisdom. Night settles slowly in the north. Not with sudden darkness, but with a long, patient dimming, the kind that gives the sky time to think before it sleeps. The air cools. Pine needles hush. Snow, when it comes, does not fall loudly. It drifts, as if the land itself is breathing more slowly. This is the hour when stories have always felt most at home. In this quiet, before names harden into legends, there is a presence watching. High above the world of humans, beyond fields and fires and the steady rhythm of work and rest, lies Asgard. It is not merely a shining city or a fortress of gods. It is a place of decision, of watchfulness, of preparation. From here, the patterns of the worlds can be seen, not clearly, not easily, but enough to know that nothing stands still for long. At the center of that watchfulness sits Odin. He is not thunder, though thunder answers him. He is not sunlight, though kings claim his favor. He is not warmth or comfort or easy hope. Odin is something quieter and heavier. He is the god who listens when others celebrate. The one who notices what is missing when others are satisfied. To call Odin the All-Father is accurate, but incomplete. He is a ruler, yes, but not one who rules by rest. He governs by vigilance, by gathering, by remembering, by asking questions long after others are content with the answers they already have. Wisdom, in the world Odin inhabits, is not a gentle thing. It does not arrive freely. It does not promise happiness. Wisdom in the north is closer to readiness, to foresight, to the ability to stand when the ground gives way. It is knowing how to speak so words endure after voices fade. Knowing when to act and, just as importantly, when to wait. Odin understands this better than any god. From his high seat, he watches the realms unfold beneath him, Midgard, where humans live brief, burning lives. Jotunheim, wild and ancient, where giants remember a time before the gods. The hidden paths between worlds, where old forces move without asking permission. And always, threading through them all, the deep presence of the world tree, holding everything together while slowly bending under the weight of time. Odin knows what others only sense. The world is not stable. It is not broken yet, but it is not permanent. Cycles turn, bonds fray. Promises made at the beginning of things must one day be tested. Even the gods are not exempt from this truth. This knowledge does not come to Odin as panic. It comes as pressure, a steady awareness that there will be a final accounting, a reckoning written into the bones of existence itself. Ragnarök is not simply an ending, it is a consequence. And Odin, more than any other being, feels its approach long before it has a name. That is why he searches. Not because he lacks power, not because he doubts his throne, but because power without understanding is brittle, because strength without foresight breaks at the worst moment, because a ruler who stops learning has already begun to fail. Odin's search for wisdom does not begin with a single dramatic choice. It begins with restlessness. A sense that there is more to know. He gathers knowledge the way others gather weapons. He collects stories, names, spells, memories. He listens to the old, the strange, the unwelcome. He values insight wherever it hides, even when it comes from enemies, from outcasts, from those who demand a price. This is not a comfortable path. Wisdom, as Odin will learn again and again, demands payment, sometimes in blood, sometimes in reputation, sometimes in solitude, and sometimes in certainty itself. Yet Odin never turns away. The worlds he watches are fragile because they are alive. Humans forget quickly. Giants remember too long. Gods are caught between, bearing responsibility without the luxury of innocence. Odin understands that survival, true survival, requires more than courage or force. It requires seeing the shape of what is coming. So he sends his ravens out each day not as symbols of dominance, but as extensions of his hunger to know. They fly over battlefields and farms alike, over whispered conversations and silent grief. They return not with comfort, but with truth. Odin listens. This listening is what separates him from gods who rule by spectacle. He does not merely command the present. He studies the future, even when the future resists being understood. In the quiet hours, when feasts have ended and halls grow still, Odin reflects on the limits of divine sight. Even from Asgard, not everything can be seen. Some knowledge lies beneath the surface of the world, hidden in roots and shadows. Some truths are guarded, not by walls, but by cost. Odin begins to sense that wisdom cannot simply be observed from above. It must be approached, sought out, earned. And so the Watcher prepares to become a wanderer. The search for wisdom will take Odin far from his throne and deep into places most gods avoid. It will demand sacrifice that reshapes him. It will give him insight that strengthens him and burdens him. By the time his journey is complete, Odin will not be the same being who first felt that restless pull. But here, at the beginning, the change is subtle. A god sits beneath the stars, aware that knowing more may cost him dearly, and choosing to seek it anyway. This is where the story truly begins. Not with a war, not with a prophecy spoken aloud, but with a question quietly asked in the long northern night. Before Odin becomes a wanderer, he is already many things. He is king, seated among gods who look to him for judgment and direction. He is father, bound by blood and responsibility to children who embody strength, beauty, justice, and tragedy. He is architect, having shaped the world from violence older than memory. And yet, beneath all of these roles, there is something quieter and more enduring. Odin is a watcher. He does not rule by accident. Odin's authority does not come from sheer force, though he commands it, nor does it rest solely on lineage or conquest. It comes from his grasp of how things hold together. Law, oath, reputation, memory. These are the invisible threads that keep worlds from collapsing into noise. Odin understands that power without structure decays quickly, and structure without understanding becomes cruelty. To rule, in Odin's mind, is to see. But even sight has limits. Odin carries many names, and each reflects a facet of his nature. Some names emphasize his sovereignty, others point to his cunning. Still others describe him as a traveler, a masked figure who arrives unannounced and leaves behind changed circumstances. These names are not decorations. They are records of how Odin has been encountered by different peoples in different moments, under different pressures. Among the gods, Odin stands apart not because he is the strongest, but because he is the most aware of consequence. Thor wields overwhelming force, direct and unmistakable. Balder shines with goodness and trust. Tyr embodies law and sacrifice. Each god carries a principle the world needs. Odin carries the burden of balancing them. That burden does not make him gentle. Odin can be cold. He can be distant. He can make decisions that appear cruel when seen up close. But these choices are never careless. They are calculated, measured against futures that others cannot, or will not, look toward. This is where Odin's hunger for wisdom begins to take shape. He has already seen enough to know that strength alone is insufficient. Victories fade, alliances shift, even divine order is temporary. Odin does not seek wisdom because he is ignorant. He seeks it because he is experienced. His family binds him to the fate of the worlds more tightly than any throne ever could. As a husband, Odin is bound to Frigg, whose insight rivals his own in ways that are quieter and no less formidable. Their partnership is not one of constant agreement, but of shared responsibility. Between them flows a deep understanding that some knowledge is better left unspoken, even between gods. As a father, Odin faces a truth he cannot escape. His children will inherit a world that is already leaning toward its end. Thor, defender of gods and humans alike, stands as a living weapon against chaos. Balder, radiant and beloved, represents the fragile ideal of harmony. Others carry shadows that Odin recognizes as necessary, even when they trouble him. In each of them, Odin sees not just who they are, but who they will be required to become. This knowledge weighs on him. Unlike gods who live in the present moment, Odin lives stretched across time. He remembers the world's beginning vividly enough to feel it in his bones, and he senses its ending like a distant storm that never quite leaves the horizon. That awareness isolates him. Feasts fill Asgard's halls, laughter echoes against golden walls. Stories are told and retold, each one affirming that the gods are mighty and the world is ordered. Odin participates, but he does not forget himself in celebration. His attention drifts outward toward what lies beyond the warmth of the fire. Above all, Odin understands the power of words. In the North, spoken language is not fleeting. It binds. It carries law, memory, and magic. Oaths spoken aloud shape reality. Songs preserve what cannot be written. A man's name is his legacy. Odin governs this world of speech and meaning. He knows that a poorly chosen word can unravel trust, and a well-chosen one can end a feud without bloodshed. Wisdom, therefore, is inseparable from language. To understand the world, one must know how to speak to it and how to listen. This is why Odin surrounds himself with symbols of attention rather than brute force. His ravens are not mere messengers. They are the extension of his mind, sent to observe what cannot be seen from a throne. They return with fragments, rumors, truths, half-truths, and contradictions. Odin does not demand certainty from them. He demands information. Likewise, the wolves at his side are not symbols of savagery, but of endurance. They survive by awareness, by patience, by understanding their environment. Odin values these traits because they mirror his own. Even Odin's weapon reflects his nature. His spear is not just a tool of battle, it is bound by oath. It represents commitment to consequence. When Odin acts, he binds himself to the result. There is no casual violence in his choices, only necessity. Still, for all his preparation, Odin senses a gap. There are things he cannot reach from where he stands. The gods' order is young compared to the ancient forces beneath it. Giants remember truths older than Asgard. The dead carry knowledge the living cannot. Beneath the visible world lie wells, roots, and paths that do not answer to kings. Odin begins to understand that wisdom is not centralized. It is scattered, hidden, often guarded by those who resent the gods. To gather it, Odin will have to move beyond comfort, beyond reputation, and beyond the safety of his known role. He will have to be misunderstood. He will have to endure loss. He will have to place himself in situations where power alone offers no protection. This realization does not frighten him. It clarifies him. Odin does not chase wisdom for glory. He does not seek admiration. He seeks readiness. He seeks the ability to meet the future without illusion. Before the journey begins, Odin is already committed. The throne is secure, the halls are bright, the gods trust him. But trust is not enough. Odin knows that what is coming will test every bond, every oath, every story the gods have told themselves about permanence. When that moment arrives, ignorance will be fatal. And so, quietly, without ceremony, Odin turns his attention away from what he already controls and toward what he does not yet understand. The search for wisdom is no longer a vague inclination. It has become a necessity. The watcher prepares to step into the unknown. There are places in the worlds where sound behaves differently, where footsteps feel muted, as if the ground itself is listening, where the air carries a weight that is not quite silence, but something older and more attentive. Odin knows these places exist long before he ever stands within one of them. He feels them as absences in his knowledge, dark shapes where certainty should be. At the center of all worlds stands the great tree. It is not merely large. It is foundational. Its presence is so complete that it disappears into normality, the way mountains do, when they have always been there. The tree does not dominate the worlds by force, it holds them by necessity. Its branches stretch into realms of light and order, while its roots burrow downward into places of cold, memory, and decay. The roots matter more than the branches. Odin understands this instinctively. Growth is visible, support is not. Beneath the tree, far from the halls of gods and the fires of humans, lie the wells. They are not decorative features of myth, they are sources, reservoirs of something the gods did not create and do not control. One of these wells is guarded, not by walls, not by armies, but by a being whose very presence discourages carelessness. Mimir is not young, he is not impressed by titles. His wisdom does not come from collecting facts, but from remaining still while the world changes around him. He remembers what others forget, and he forgets nothing that matters. Odin approaches this place without ceremony. He does not arrive as a conquering king or a demanding god. He comes as a seeker who understands that authority has no currency here. The air beneath the roots does not respond to command. It responds to balance. The well itself is quiet. Its surface does not ripple unless disturbed. Looking into it does not offer visions or dramatic revelation. It offers depth, a sense that whatever lies within is not eager to be taken. Mimir waits. He does not ask Odin why he has come, he already knows. He does not flatter him, nor does he test him with riddles. He states the truth plainly. Wisdom has a cost. Odin does not argue. He has learned over long ages of rule that some negotiations cannot be avoided. There are no loopholes here, no clever wording that will grant him access without consequence. The price is simple. An eye. Not a metaphor, not a symbolic gesture, a true sacrifice. Odin pauses. This moment is not dramatic in the way later stories will make it sound. There is no outcry, no hesitation stretched thin by fear. There is only assessment. Odin measures what he is giving against what he seeks. An eye is not a small thing. It is depth perception. It is balance. It is a way of moving through the world with confidence. To lose it is to accept permanent limitation. To rule with half one's sight is to invite judgment, doubt, and vulnerability. Odin knows this. He also knows that sight has already failed him. There are truths he cannot see from where he stands, futures that blur and slip away, patterns that refuse to resolve. An eye that only sees the surface of things is not enough. So Odin agrees. The act itself is quiet. There is no crowd, no witness eager to tell the tale. The well does not react with approval or shock. It simply receives what it is owed. Odin drinks. The water does not taste sweet. It does not burn. It carries no immediate rush of understanding. Instead, it settles, slowly, like cold spreading through the body after long exposure. What Odin gains is not a list of answers. It is perspective. He begins to see how events echo backward and forward through time, how choices ripple outward long after they seem to have ended, how some outcomes are not caused by a single action, but by accumulation, small decisions layered one upon another until they become unavoidable. This knowledge does not bring comfort. It brings weight. Odin rises from the well changed. The loss of his eye is visible. It marks him permanently. Gods will notice. Giants will notice. Humans will whisper. He does not hide it. To hide the cost would be to cheapen the gain. Mimir does not praise him. He does not congratulate Odin on his resolve. Wisdom does not applaud. It simply remains available to those willing to pay. Odin leaves the roots with a new understanding. Knowledge, taken from the depths, cannot be used lightly. It demands restraint. Misapplied wisdom causes more damage than ignorance ever could. As he moves away from the well, Odin feels the imbalance in his body. He adjusts his stride. He relearns how to judge distance, Every step reinforces the truth of what he has done. The sacrifice does not end when the bargain is complete. It continues. In the days that follow, Odin notices a subtle shift in how he perceives the worlds. He sees less detail in the immediate moment, but more meaning over time. He is slower to act, but surer when he does. Rashness becomes impossible. Impulse feels irresponsible. This change isolates him further. Other gods sense the difference but cannot name it. They feel that Odin has moved farther away, even as he sits among them. His silences grow longer. His words, fewer but heavier. The well beneath the roots has given him what he sought, and it has shown him something else. Wisdom is not cumulative in the way power is. It does not stack neatly. Each piece alters the whole. Each truth forces a re-evaluation of everything that came before. Odin understands now that this is only the beginning. There are other depths, other prices, and knowledge that cannot be gained through trade alone. As the great tree continues its slow, endless growth, Odin carries the weight of his choice back toward the light of the upper worlds. The Watcher has crossed his first true threshold. From this point forward, wisdom will never be free again. Some knowledge cannot be reached by bargaining. Odin learns this after the well beneath the roots, after the loss that marks his face and reshapes his vision. There are truths that do not respond to trade, no matter how steep the price. They do not sit waiting to be purchased. They must be endured. The tree stands where it always has. Its presence is constant, but not passive. The great trunk rises through the worlds like a spine, carrying weight without complaint. Its branches cradle realms of light and order. Its roots clutch cold earth, dark water, and memory older than gods. The tree does not explain itself, it simply is. Odin approaches it alone. There is no audience for what he intends to do, no council debate, no encouragement from those who benefit from his rule. This is not an act of kingship, it is an act of surrender. He binds himself to the tree, not as punishment, not as spectacle, as a choice. The act is deliberate, the bindings are secure. Odin leaves no path of easy escape. He understands that if endurance is required, half measures will fail. Wisdom does not reveal itself to those who flinch at the first sign of pain. The spear enters him. It is his own. This matters. The wound is not symbolic. It bleeds. The pain is sharp, immediate, and grounding. Odin does not cry out. He does not resist the sensation or attempt to master it. He lets it be what it is. Then the waiting begins. The first night passes slowly. Time stretches differently when there is nothing to distract from it. There is no movement, no comfort, no relief. The tree does not respond to Odin's presence. It does not acknowledge his sacrifice. The wind moves through the branches above him, indifferent. By the second night, pain becomes rhythm. It pulses, it dulls, it sharpens again. Odin's body adjusts in small ways, finding moments of tolerance without ever finding ease. His thoughts begin to loosen their grip on the present. By the third night, hunger makes itself known, not as panic, but as emptiness, a hollowing that draws attention inward. Odin feels his strength recede, and with it the illusion of control. The god who rules by foresight now exists only in the moment-to-moment reality of endurance. By the fourth night, memory intrudes. Not as nostalgia, but as fragments. Old decisions, words spoken long ago, paths chosen, and paths refused. Odin sees how often certainty masked ignorance, how confidence sometimes replaced understanding. The tree remains silent. By the fifth night, vision changes. With one eye already gone, the world begins to flatten and blur. Stars smear into pale trails. The branches above seem both near and infinitely distant. Odin no longer trusts his senses. He must rely on something deeper, attention without assumption. By the sixth night, thought itself slows. Language loses its urgency. Concepts dissolve into impressions. Odin no longer frames questions clearly. He simply is, suspended between worlds, between intention and dissolution. This is where many would break. This is where meaning slips away and suffering becomes pointless. Odin does not break. He remains. By the seventh night, something shifts. Not relief, not rescue, recognition. Patterns begin to emerge, not imposed, not forced, but perceived lines. Shapes, marks that are not images and not sounds, yet somehow carry structure. Odin senses that these are not inventions of his mind, but features of the world he has never learned to read. By the eighth night, the marks sharpen. They take form as runes. Not letters as humans will one day understand them, but symbols of relationship. Each rune carries action, consequence, movement. They are not passive signs, they do things. Odin reaches for them, not with his hands, with attention. By the ninth night, understanding breaks through. The runes do not announce themselves. They do not grant mastery. They allow participation. Odin grasps how words can bind, loosen, heal, conceal, destroy. How spoken intent, shaped correctly, can alter the course of events without a single blow struck. This knowledge does not feel triumphant. It feels dangerous. Odin understands immediately why such knowledge cannot be given freely. Runes are not tools for comfort. They are instruments of precision. Used without restraint, they would unravel trust, warp memory, and fracture the balance between worlds. At the edge of collapse, Odin releases himself. He falls. The ground receives him without ceremony. The pain does not vanish. The hunger does not immediately recede, but the ordeal is complete. Odin has not conquered the tree. He has listened to it. The runes remain with him, not as possessions, but as responsibilities. Each one carries weight. Each demands understanding before use. When Odin rises, he does so slowly. He is weaker in body, stronger in perception. The gods will later speak of this ordeal as a heroic trial. Poets will compress it into neat verses. Odin himself knows better. This was not bravery. It was necessity. Some truths can only be learned when control is stripped away, when pain removes pretense, when the self is reduced to attention alone. The Watcher has endured the cost that trade could not cover. From this moment forward, Odin does not merely seek wisdom. He bears it. And bearing it will shape every choice that follows. After the tree, Odin does not rush. Wisdom gained through suffering leaves a residue. It settles into the body and mind, altering posture, altering patience. Odin carries the runes carefully, aware that knowledge revealed under such conditions does not tolerate haste. There is more to learn, but learning now requires discernment. Among the gods, not all wisdom is treated equally. Some knowledge is praised openly: law, memory, lineage, the arts of rule and war. Other knowledge is tolerated only at the margins. It is whispered about, respected, and distrusted in equal measure. This is the domain Odin turns toward next. Seether. It is not easily defined, and that is part of the problem. Seether is not the clean geometry of runes, nor the public authority of spoken law. It is fluid, adaptive. It bends toward outcome rather than principle. Where runes shape reality through structure, Seether nudges probability, fate, and perception. It deals in futures. And futures make people uncomfortable. Among the Aesir, Seether carries a quiet stigma. It is associated with prophecy, trance, and the crossing of boundaries between past and future, self and other, living and dead. It is often practiced by those who stand outside conventional power, seeresses, wanderers, figures who live at the edges of society. Odin knows this. He also knows that ignoring a source of knowledge does not make it disappear. It only ensures that others will wield it first. To seek Seether is to accept suspicion. For a god of kingship and law, this is no small thing. Reputation matters. Appearances stabilize order. Odin understands the danger of undermining the very norms he enforces. Yet wisdom does not care about reputation. The future will not soften its blow because the gods found a practice distasteful. So Odin learns. Not loudly, not publicly. He does not announce a shift in doctrine or demand acceptance. He observes those who practice Seether with effectiveness rather than pride. He studies how they prepare, how they enter altered states, how they interpret what they receive. Seether does not speak plainly. It reveals possibilities, not certainties, threads, not conclusions. Odin discovers quickly that forcing clarity from it produces distortion. The practice demands patience, humility, and an ability to live with ambiguity. This challenges him. Odin prefers preparation to comfort, but even he finds the uncertainty difficult. Seith offers foresight without reassurance. It shows what might come without promising control. That, paradoxically, is its value. Through Seether, Odin begins to see the future not as a single line, but as a field of pressures. Certain outcomes exert gravity, others fade unless acted upon. Fate is not a script, but neither is it entirely negotiable. The tension this creates is profound. If the future can be influenced, then responsibility expands. Every choice becomes heavier. Every delay risks closing paths that cannot be reopened. Odin bears this weight silently. He understands why many avoid this knowledge. It offers no relief. It cannot be undone. Once seen, the shape of possibility alters how the present feels. This knowledge also deepens Odin's isolation. Gods who value honor through visible action struggle to trust a practice rooted in intuition and unseen influence. They fear what cannot be measured. Odin does not blame them. But he does not retreat. Seither teaches him something the runes did not. Wisdom is not always clean. Some truths arrive tangled, morally uncomfortable, socially disruptive. Avoiding them does not preserve virtue, it only delays reckoning. Odin learns to hold this contradiction, to be ruler and transgressor, to enforce boundaries while crossing them when survival demands it. This balance does not make him popular, it makes him prepared. As Odin deepens his understanding, he also learns restraint. Seither is not to be used casually. Every act reverberates. The practice sharpens intuition but dulls certainty. Used too often, it would erode the clarity he gained from sacrifice. Wisdom, he realizes, is not found in mastery of a single path. It emerges from knowing when to use which form of knowing. Odin steps back from Seither not because he rejects it, but because he respects it. He now understands another piece of the world's hidden structure, and another cost that knowledge quietly demands. This lesson prepares him for what comes next. There are voices that speak with greater authority than probability. Voices that do not deal in possibility, but in memory. To hear them, Odin will have to cross a final boundary. The living can only go so far on their own. To learn what even Seither cannot reveal, Odin must turn toward those who no longer live. There are questions the living circle endlessly without answering. They speak them aloud and soften them with hope. They bury them beneath distraction. They reshape them into stories that end where comfort begins. Odin knows these habits well. He has watched mortals practice them for generations, and gods are not immune to the same instincts. But the dead do not soften truth. They have no need to persuade, no reputation to protect, no future to preserve. What they remember is stripped of urgency and desire, leaving only what remains after consequences past. This is why Odin turns toward them, not in desperation, in recognition. He has learned enough to know the limits of every path he has walked so far. The well beneath the roots gave him depth. The tree taught him structure and endurance. Seither revealed the pressure of possibility. Still, there are answers that resist interpretation. certain events loom with a weight that probability alone cannot explain. Ragnarök is one of them. Odin does not speak the name often. Naming gives shape, and shape invites fixation. But the sense of an ending, vast, unavoidable, and deeply personal, presses at the edge of his awareness. To understand an ending, Odin knows, one must listen to those who have already crossed thresholds the living fear. The path he follows now is colder. Not because of frost or shadow, but because it leads away from motion, toward stillness, toward memory unaltered by desire. The place Odin seeks is not a battlefield or a hall of glory. It is a liminal space, where boundaries blur and the distinction between presence and absence thins. The journey is not marked by distance so much as by withdrawal, from noise, from vitality, from the reassuring rhythms of life. When Odin calls, the dead do not answer eagerly. They must be compelled. This compulsion is not cruelty. It is recognition of authority rooted in sacrifice. Odin does not command lightly. He understands that disturbing the dead carries consequence. Each question pulls at a thread that once belonged to a living being. The seeress he awakens does not greet him with warmth. Her voice carries neither anger nor affection, only weariness. To be recalled from death is to be reminded of unfinished business, a burden no one welcomes. She speaks because she must, and because Odin has earned the right to ask. The knowledge she offers is not new to her. It has already happened, in the sense that matters most to the dead. Time does not flow for her as it does for the living. Past and future sit beside one another, equally settled. This terrifies Odin, not because he doubts his strength, but because it challenges his most carefully held belief that preparation can always change outcome. The answers he receives are precise and unsparing. They confirm what he has sensed but refused to accept fully. That the end he fears is not rumor or exaggeration. That it is woven into the structure of the worlds themselves. That even the gods are participants, not exceptions. Odin presses further. He asks not how to prevent the end, but how to meet it. This distinction matters. The dead respond differently to those who ask for escape than to those who seek understanding. Odin does not beg for loopholes. He asks for clarity. The seeress speaks of loss. Not abstract loss, but personal, names that matter to Odin, bonds he has invested in carefully, outcomes that no strategy can fully avoid. The knowledge lands without cruelty, but without mercy either. This is the true cost of speaking with the dead. They do not exaggerate suffering. They simply refuse to minimize it. When the answers end, there is no reassurance. No suggestion that courage will be rewarded or that sacrifice will undo what is coming. There is only acknowledgement. Odin listens. He does not argue. To argue would be meaningless. The dead do not debate futures. They remember them. When the silence returns, Odin releases her. He does not linger. Lingering would turn necessity into indulgence. He has learned what he came to learn. The journey back feels longer. Not because of distance, but because of weight. Knowledge gained here does not energize, it anchors. Odin feels the gravity of what he now carries, settling into his decisions, reshaping his priorities. This knowledge does not paralyze him. It sharpens him. If the end cannot be avoided, then preparation becomes sacred. If loss is inevitable, then meaning must be preserved where possible. Odin begins to understand his role not as savior of the worlds, but as their steward through collapse. This realization does not bring peace. It brings resolve. Odin turns away from the realm of the dead with no illusion left intact. The future is narrower than he hoped, but not empty. There are still choices to be made, still actions that matter. The dead have given him what no living source could: certainty without comfort. From this point forward, Odin's search for wisdom is no longer about avoiding fate. It is about meeting it without flinching. There is a kind of wisdom that does not arrive as instruction. It arrives as voice. Odin understands this long before he seeks it. He has ruled through law and watched through sacrifice. He has endured pain and listened to prophecy, yet something remains incomplete. Knowledge that cannot be spoken cannot be shared, and knowledge that cannot be shared cannot endure. The worlds do not survive on foresight alone. They survive on memory, on stories carried from mouth to mouth, long after halls fall and names fade from stone. Odin knows that if wisdom is to outlast the coming storm, it must be shaped into something that moves, something that persuades, binds, and teaches without command. This is where poetry enters the search, not as ornament, as infrastructure. The origin of the mead is older than Odin's current concerns, but not older than consequence. It begins with violence carefully contained. Conflict resolved not by endless feud, but by deliberate creation. From that resolution comes something rare, a substance that carries insight itself, distilled into liquid form. The mead is not merely intoxicating. It sharpens perception, it unlocks articulation, it allows truth to be remembered rather than merely known. Giants guard it. This is fitting. Giants have always understood the power of raw forces the gods prefer to civilize. They know that knowledge does not belong naturally to order. It must be taken, bargained for, or stolen. Odin chooses theft. Not recklessly, precisely. He does not march into giant territory as a god. He does not demand tribute or issue threats. He disguises himself, because wisdom taken by force resists loyalty. Wisdom taken by cunning adapts. Odin becomes a worker. He labors. He proves usefulness. He observes. Every movement is measured. Every word weighed. Giants respect competence more than lineage, and Odin understands this deeply. He does not rush toward the prize. Patience opens doors that power cannot. Eventually, Odin reaches the place where the mead is kept. Not in the open, not accessible by accident. It rests in darkness, sealed away not just to protect it, but to contain it. Inspiration uncontained would destabilize everything it touched. Gunnla stands between Odin and the mead. She is not a guard in the way warriors understand the term. Her vigilance is quieter, personal. She does not mistake Odin for what he pretends to be, but she allows the encounter to unfold. This moment matters. Not because of romance or betrayal, but because of trust. Odin does not overpower her. He does not coerce. He persuades, listens, and waits. The exchange between them is measured, restrained, and deliberate. Whatever passes between them is not spectacle. It is consent, shaped by circumstance. When Odin drinks, he does so with restraint. He takes what is needed. No more. No less. The mead does not flood him with genius. It does not grant instant mastery. It clarifies connection. Thought to word. Word to memory. Memory to legacy. Odin understands immediately why this form of wisdom is dangerous. Poetry can persuade without force. It can rewrite memory. It can elevate lies or preserve truth, depending on who holds it. When Odin escapes, he does so at cost. Some of the mead spills. This too matters. Not all inspiration is equal. Some of it lands where it should not. Some of it is wasted. Some of it is misused. Odin accepts this imperfection. A world where all poetry is perfect would be unbearable. As he returns to the gods, Odin carries more than a substance. He carries a method. He now knows how wisdom survives catastrophe. Not by command, by being spoken, by being remembered. by being reshaped by those who inherit it. This changes how Odin prepares for what is coming. Armies matter. Prophecy matters. But so do words whispered by fires long after the gods themselves are gone. The mead ensures that wisdom will not die silently. It will be argued over, misunderstood, sung poorly and brilliantly in equal measure, and through that imperfection it will endure. Odin has now secured what neither sacrifice nor prophecy alone could guarantee: a future voice. The search for wisdom turns again away from theft and toward application, because knowledge, once preserved, must still be lived. Wisdom changes how one moves through the world. After sacrifice, ordeal, prophecy, and theft, Odin does not retreat into distance. He does not remain seated above the worlds, hoarding what he has gathered. Knowledge that is never tested among the living hardens into theory. Odin understands that wisdom must walk. So he leaves Asgard, not in splendor, in disguise. Among humans, Odin is no king. He takes the shape of an old wanderer, bent, weathered, unremarkable at first glance. This is not deception for its own sake. It is method. Authority silences honesty. Power warps behavior. If Odin wishes to see humanity clearly, he must remove every signal that would make people perform for him. On the road, hierarchy dissolves. A traveler is judged by conduct alone: how he speaks, how he listens, whether he honors hospitality, whether he knows when to stay silent. These are tests no throne can pass. Odin walks from farm to hall, from shoreline to forest path. He watches how humans survive uncertainty with limited sight and limited time. Their lives are short, but their choices echo. Odin sees courage, born not of prophecy, but of necessity. Kindness offered without promise of reward. Cruelty justified by fear. Humans, he realizes, live permanently inside the conditions gods occasionally simulate. They do not know what is coming. They act anyway. This teaches Odin restraint. In halls where hospitality is honored, Odin rewards generosity, but not extravagance. The gift is proportionate, wisdom, not wealth. Advice given obliquely, in the form of a story or a warning that sounds almost casual. Those who listen carefully benefit later. In places where hospitality fails, Odin does not rage. He observes. Disregard for the stranger is not always malice. Often it is scarcity or fear mistaken for prudence. Odin notes the difference. Wisdom requires discrimination, not judgment alone. Riddles become his preferred language, not to show cleverness, but to reveal it in others. A riddle exposes how a person thinks, whether they rush, whether they consider context, whether they tolerate uncertainty. Odin learns who is capable of growth and who clings to certainty like armor. Some encounters end poorly. Those who mock the old wanderer, who value status over substance, learn quickly that appearances mislead. Odin does not punish lightly, but he does not protect the arrogant from consequence. Wisdom withheld can be as instructive as wisdom given. From these journeys, Odin gathers practical insight. He learns which customs hold communities together and which are repeated without understanding. He sees how law survives best when supported by shared values rather than fear. He notices how stories travel faster than decrees, and how memory preserves what force cannot. These observations shape his counsel to gods and kings alike. Odin no longer speaks only of destiny and sacrifice. He speaks of timing, of listening before acting, of choosing allies carefully, of knowing when silence is stronger than command. Among humans, Odin also learns humility. Not the humility of submission, but of proportion. Mortal lives are brief, yet they find meaning without certainty of outcome. They plant knowing they may never harvest. They teach children knowing the world may change beyond recognition. This perspective tempers Odin's burden. If humans can act meaningfully without assurance, then preparation for Ragnarök need not be despair. It can be stewardship, doing what must be done, even when success cannot be guaranteed. When Odin eventually returns to Asgard, he carries no trophies. He carries insight earned through anonymity. The Wanderer's Road has shown him something the tree and the dead could not fully teach. Wisdom is relational. It emerges between beings, shaped by trust, tested by circumstance, preserved through conduct. Odin's search nears its final shape. What remains is not another sacrifice, but synthesis. He must now gather what he has learned, sacred and mundane alike, and prepare the worlds not for escape, but for endurance. The road has done its work. The Wanderer returns, changed again. By the time Odin turns fully toward preparation, illusion has already burned away. He no longer asks whether the end can be avoided. That question has answered itself. What remains is harder, quieter, and far more demanding. How to act meaningfully when the outcome is known. Wisdom does not spare him grief. If anything, it sharpens it. Odin sees further than any other god, and because of this he mourns earlier. Loss arrives for him not as shock, but as prolonged anticipation. Every bond carries an echo of its breaking. Every triumph is shadowed by what it will eventually cost. This knowledge does not weaken him, it disciplines him. Preparation becomes sacred work. Odin organizes, not to control fate, but to meet it standing. He gathers the fallen not out of hunger for glory, but out of responsibility. Those who die with courage are not tools, they are witnesses. They will remember how the world was meant to be defended. Valhalla is not a reward. It is a holding place for resolve. Here, the dead are not celebrated for conquest, but for readiness. Each day of training is repetition without illusion. They know what is coming. Odin does not hide the truth from them. To do so would poison the purpose of their stand. This honesty costs him devotion. Some would prefer comfort to clarity. Odin does not bend to them. He has learned that false hope corrodes faster than despair. Among the gods, tension grows. Not all accept Odin's conclusions. Some still search for loopholes, bargains, or clever escapes. Odin allows them this instinct. He once shared it, but he no longer anchors his strategy to denial. Instead, he prepares for loss. This preparation is not purely martial, it is ethical. Odin considers which values must survive, even if the worlds do not. Which stories deserve to be carried forward. Which acts, though doomed, must still be done because they define what it means to stand against annihilation. Here, wisdom becomes restraint. Odin does not expend every resource prematurely. He does not chase every warning. He learns to conserve force for moments that matter, to wait without surrendering. The hardest lesson arrives last. There are losses wisdom cannot soften. Some deaths will wound Odin beyond repair. Some betrayals will arrive not because of ignorance, but because of necessity. Fate does not always punish cruelty. It often exploits love. Odin accepts this without self-deception. He does not pretend that knowing makes the pain lesser. He allows it to exist, integrated rather than denied. Grief becomes part of his clarity, not a threat to it. As Ragnarök approaches, Odin's role crystallizes. He is no longer merely a seeker of wisdom. He is its custodian. His task is not victory. It is example. To show that facing the end with eyes open is itself a form of defiance. That meaning does not require permanence, that honor can exist even when outcome is fixed. This is the final transformation of the Watcher. Wisdom has stripped away hope that depends on survival, replacing it with resolve that does not. Odin stands prepared, not because he believes he will win, but because he believes preparation matters. The end will come. What matters now is how it is met. When the search finally slows, it does not end in triumph. There is no final revelation that ties every thread neatly together. No moment where uncertainty dissolves into peace. What Odin gains, after everything he has endured, is something far more restrained and far more durable. Clarity, not certainty. Odin's journey has taken from him what illusions he still carried: power without understanding, knowledge without cost. Hope that depends on escape rather than endurance. In their place, something steadier has formed. Wisdom, as Odin has learned it, is not an accumulation of answers. It is a posture, a way of standing in the world without flinching. He has learned that sacrifice sharpens perception, but only when accepted fully. That suffering does not ennoble by default. It merely removes distractions. Meaning must still be chosen. He has learned that foresight does not grant control. It grants responsibility. To see further is not to dominate events, but to carry their weight earlier and more consciously. He has learned that knowledge preserved in silence dies. That is why words matter, why poetry matters, why stories spoken imperfectly around firelight can outlast walls of stone and armies of gods. Odin now understands his role not as the center of wisdom, but as its conduit. What he has gathered must circulate among gods, among humans, beyond his own lifetime. The measure of wisdom is not whether it saves the world. It is whether it teaches those who come after how to live inside uncertainty with integrity intact. Odin does not pretend that wisdom brings happiness. It brings proportion. It teaches what deserves urgency and what does not, what is worth defending even when defense will fail, what must be said even when it will be misunderstood. As the worlds move toward their breaking point, Odin does not withdraw into despair. Nor does he cling to optimism stripped of evidence. He remains present, attentive, prepared to act when action matters, and to endure when it does not. This is the final lesson his search offers. That wisdom is not found at the end of the road. It is carried along it. In every choice made without guarantee, in every act performed without promise of reward, in every story told knowing it may be the last, and telling it carefully anyway, Odin's eye is gone. His body bears the memory of the tree. His mind carries futures he cannot change. And still he stands, not because he believes the world will be saved, but because standing matters. The night deepens, the fire burns low, and the story, having given what it can, grows quiet. If this journey has held your attention, if these old stories help you slow your thoughts and ease into rest, you're welcome to return again. There are many paths through the past, and each one carries its own quiet lessons. For now, let the silence settle. The search has done its work.